Everybody else say? All right. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Before we get started, I do want to introduce our Dahlgren Township representative who is here joining us today at the Planning Commission. You want to introduce yourself, please?
Wonderful.
You got to speak into the microphone.
Perfect. Dahlgren Township Supervisor Paul Modine, replacing Mr. Gene Miller. And I look forward to being with you guys.
Thank you for joining us. Absolutely. Okay. Is there anything we need to change on the agenda whatsoever, Cindy or Diane? Anything we need to change? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we have next on our agenda to approve the meeting minutes from December 15th, 2016.
I'll make a motion to approve the December 15th, 2016 meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we're going to move on to our fourth item, which is a public hearing on the proposed development of the Hallblade properties. And so I'm going to open the public hearing, but we'll first start with a presentation by our city planner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At your last meeting in December, you looked at the preliminary and final plat as well as the rezoning for this property. As a refresher to all of you as well as anyone in the audience who maybe was not at that meeting, they are proposing to rezone the property from agricultural to R1 residential, and then also to subdivide the property into what will now be 3 lots. At the December meeting, you looked at a plat for 4 lots. So they did reduce and remove the lot that's the southernmost lot in this plan, and you took public comment last month, but we'd encourage you to take additional public comment this month. And I don't really have anything else to add unless you have any questions.
Okay, hold on, since I wasn't here last time. Did you guys have any questions? I gotta scroll.
I have no questions.
You were here last time.
Yes.
Yeah, I did have a question. So I did read the comments that were submitted previously. Actually, this one was submitted in January, so possibly it was after the last meeting where this was discussed?
They submitted a previous letter as well, and they're very similar.
Okay, so my only question was, there seemed to be concerns addressed. This is a letter from Sean and Amy Stapleton about the support of the roadway and these additional properties and a blind bend and those sorts of things. I don't know if, I mean, obviously that's not part of this plat and this property, but have those concerns been addressed by the city?
I can also let Dan Boyum, the city engineer, respond to your question, but in general, the city does allow homes to front on streets such as this, rather than bringing in another new street into that area. And there is a bend in the road, but it's not, if you would like to put a condition that the driveway on the northernmost lot has to be to the south side of the lot, that would take it as far away from the bend in the road as we could make it.
Okay, okay. There were a lot of concerns about the 4th lot, and that's been removed, so.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any other comments. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to make any comments? We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to make any comments, if you can come up here, where do we want them to speak? At this microphone right up here. If you can come in up and introduce yourself, state your name, where you live. Thank you.
Yep, hi there. My name is Doug O'Connick. I live at 1521 Mount Hope Road, just south of the cemetery, and we have the property between the cemetery and up to the north side of this development. And I have no real objections about the development or anything, but I'm bringing it up, and I don't know if there's any concern with it here, but there is a power line that runs across our property to this property, and I'm just wondering if that can possibly be moved to the road right away when these lots are developed, or possibly brought in from across the street. I believe there's another primary line on the other side of the road. XL Energy goes in there and they clear the trees for the power line, and, well, they hire someone to do it, but they pretty much go in there and it's just hacked and slashed, and trees are left all over, and I would like to get rid of that nuisance. It's a nuisance to us, so
Okay.
that would be, something that would be nice to be done, I think. But the power line across our property serves us in no way, so it's,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I noticed that utilities were said that there was no new, I thought I read that there was no new utilities required for this property.
There's no new city utilities
City utilities, thank you.
required for the property. We can take a look at that overhead power line and see if there is anything that can be done about that. I'm not familiar with it myself.
Okay.
And we could do that if you're inclined, and bring a recommendation to the city council.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
yep, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now we have a recommendation to approve the rezoning from agricultural to R1 for the Hall Blade addition.
I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the rezoning from agriculture to R1 for the Hall Blade addition.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. All right, do you want to make a motion on the next one with all the conditions?
Sure.
Down here, thank you.
I will make a motion to recommend the approval of the preliminary plat for the Hall Blade addition, subject to the conditions of the staff report, adding item number 23 of reviewing the power lines on the property.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we're also doing final plat? All right, I'll make a recommendation to approve the final plat for the Hall Blade addition, subject to the conditions of the staff report, and item number 23, we just added in the preliminary.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on. Next agenda item is the proposed development of Carver Square with the Lenzen Group. I will open the public hearing, but again, we'll have a presentation from the city planner, and then we'll take comments from the public.
Thank you very much. Before you tonight is two items on this application. The first is a rezoning from general commercial to general commercial with a planned commercial development overlay. And the second item is a preliminary plat, and the third item is the site plan. The property is located at the southwest corner of County Road 11 and Dahlgren Road. It's basically phase 2 of the Carver Dental Office plat that you looked at last year, but now it's platting that remaining outlot into 3 additional lots and incorporating all of the stormwater improvements that that are triggered at this point in time. And the development's now named Carver Square instead of Carver Dental Office Phase 2. The what you are specifically also looking at is on Lot 2, which is in the southwest corner of that plat, is a site plan for a child care facility that they're hoping to break ground on yet this spring for a fall of this year opening. The project has, it's a relatively simple project since the utilities were installed with the last phase. We did have to look at the traffic improvement analysis, or the traffic impact analysis, and there were some recommendations made by the consultant who prepared that. And I just will point out that under both a build and a no-build scenario, the turning movements from Dahlgren Road onto County Road 11 are going to be failing under, again, either a build or a no-build scenario. The city is coordinating with Carver County this year on doing a corridor study for the County Road 11 corridor so that we can figure out what does need to happen longer term on that corridor in terms of capacity improvements and intersection improvements. So that'll be going forward probably later this spring yet. So no, at this point, no improvements are proposed to Dahlgren Road or the intersection. The other point of interest on this development is that the stormwater is proposed to be located on land that the city now owns that's south of this site. So we are looking at doing a land swap with them for, to swap that land to the south for the outlot that is currently on the north side of Dahlgren Road. And we'll be coming back to you later when that's a little more fully developed as a concept for the review of the Planning Commission to determine if that is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Other than that, I think that's all the items I'm wanting to talk about. Dave Picorni is here representing the developer, if you have any questions for him or if he'd like to give any presentation on this.
I'm sorry, where is he?
Dave Picorni.
Oh, Dave, sorry. Did you want to come up and say anything about this development? Any other comments?
Just make a couple comments.
Thank you.
Well, as Cindy said, this is kind of the first phase of the remaining part of the development. We do expect to close on the daycare yet this spring, and it's really critical that we get going because daycares like to open before school opens. I can actually remember those days when we had to get kids off to daycare. So I think we're in agreement with the city staff conditions relative to the stormwater, which I think has been our, quite frankly, maybe the biggest challenge on the site. And the issue here on stormwater is the downstream system is just not complete. So basically, we're having to keep all of the stormwater on site, and we're ending up with really large ponds. But I do believe we now have at least a tentative agreement on this land exchange piece, which I think is a win-win for both the city and the developer. And I think, again, the terms of that, at least the staff and us have agreed, and it will be a good solution. So we're excited about it. We hope to be back over the next few months with 2 other proposals. And maybe the best thing we're doing is changing the name of the plat from Carver Dental to something that's meaningful, Carver Square. So other than that, we're open to questions.
Okay, thank you. I had a question about the tree ordinance, because obviously this development is not meeting the tree ordinance, and I was not sure. I understand it's a limited site, right? You've got to put this large stormwater facility. There's a lot of parking. There's not a lot of places to plant things. You can't plant trees under power lines. There's all sorts of issues going on with this site. How short of meeting the tree ordinance is it?
It is pretty short.
Okay.
The site didn't have a lot of trees to start with.
Well, no.
For us to work with. And the landscaping plan is on your screen right now. So they have really made an effort to put trees in every place that's reasonable.
Right.
To plant them. And then there's other places that might at a first blush look reasonable to some, but a lot of those areas are bioretention basins and other types of uses that we just can't put trees in. So
Okay.
I think it's fair to say that if this was started off as a complete agricultural piece,
Right.
and if you looked at that as a normal commercial development, you'd say that's kind of normal landscaping.
Right.
But Cindy's right, we had 2 issues, actually. One was the full south end, and actually some of the areas along the roadway, we just couldn't plant anything.
Yep.
But then also the place where we do have trees, because of the grades and the stormwater, there's a pipe that goes in, and where we had to put access, we're actually tearing down a fair amount of trees. And then that kicks in the part of the ordinance that says for every tree you take down, it's
You need to replace, yep.
whatever it is, the replacement piece. So I think if it wasn't for that piece, we would be meeting a normal commercial development. And I'm not saying we don't need a variance, because we do, but, and it's not that we're not interested in putting in landscaping. If anything, we would probably like to get a little more in also. But I think the plan that we've ended up with now, and I'll say it will change slightly with the new stormwater plan, because the new stormwater plan, the retention basin that's running along the county road
Yeah,
is going to go away, and that may allow us some additional plantings, and if we can put them there, we're fine putting it there. That's still kind of, in the next week, we'll have that all worked out, but we don't have it yet today.
And you'll see that revised landscape plan when the final plat comes in.
right, because we're just doing preliminary at this stage in the game.
Correct.
Okay. And then you touched on this about the traffic study, right? And just want to make sure I understood as I read it, and so I'm going to repeat back to you what I understood. You can confirm for me. So Dahlgren is going to become a county road, right? Is that true?
Well, Dahlgren is shown in the Carver County Transportation Plan that was developed about 10 years ago as a future county road.
Okay.
And the right-of-way that was preserved for Dahlgren Road when we did the Carver Dental Office plat is for the width of what the county would
county road
require
would be.
for a road. Right now, that's a city street in that section right in front of this.
Yes, exactly.
So what it becomes in the future, it could either stay a city street, it could become a county road. There is no timing associated with it, and no guarantee either, I suppose, that it would be a county road long-term.
Sure. But Jonathan Carver Parkway is considered a county road.
Correct.
Correct. So, and my understanding from the traffic study was the real cause of the traffic there isn't necessarily this site, it's the school, the elementary school up the road. That was what I read it as, is that traffic is just adding so much that that whole area is going to be congested no matter what, unless some change is made.
You're correct, the traffic study did say that, but they also were analyzing the intersection with Ironwood Drive.
Yes.
And really, the elementary school is having more of an impact on that
On
intersection.
that one, yes.
Than this one.
Right, but it was potentially going to then back up into this one, or, no. That was kind of what I read.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue with the intersection of Dahlgren and County Road 11 is just the volume of the mainline traffic.
Yeah.
And that at the peak hour, when people are traveling to work, is the same time they're going to be dropping off their children for daycare.
Right.
So the turning movements and everything are matching up with the peak hour. So
Right. Probably not also helped by the school traffic and everything along there. So you mentioned that the county will likely do a traffic study on Jonathan Carver Parkway.
The city and the county are partnering on a corridor study this year.
Okay, so then that, if there are recommended changes there, I assume it would address each of the intersections. And then just to kind of play it out, what would happen, because we're granting temporary access onto Dahlgren Road for this development, it could change that access.
It could potentially change that access, and that's why there is a condition that you saw in the Carver County comment letter that this access site could have restrictions on turning movements in the future.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment that I just think that this is a nice complement to our community in that area of Carver with the growing population and the school going up the road. So,
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody from the public who would like to make any comments? We would love to hear from you. So quiet. I'm scrolling.
On behalf of Dahlgren Township, actually, to the city planner, we appreciate, although this is within your jurisdiction, you sent us, this Board of Supervisors, a courtesy acknowledgement of what was going on. And this road, Dahlgren Road, obviously affects Dahlgren residents. And so we appreciate that we were able to have an open forum with the residents of Dahlgren Township on this as well. So thank you.
Did you have any comments or anything about this development? Okay,
No comments.
all right. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any other comments. I echo what Joanne had said, that I think this is a welcome addition to the city. It's really nice to see that corner turned into a nice, robust commercial development. We definitely need those kinds of supports and services within our community. It's really great to see it coming. So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning to general commercial with the planned commercial development overlay for Carver Square.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the preliminary plat for Carver Square, subject to the conditions of the staff report.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to our next item, which is the proposed development, Trinity Development LLC and Vincent Bluffs of Carver. So I will open the public hearing, but again, we'll have an introduction by City Planner Cindy. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Before you this evening is two items, a concept plan for a development on approximately 50 acres that is located on the south side of Spring Creek Drive and to the east of the existing Spring Creek neighborhood. It contains about 147 lots on this development as proposed in this plat. I'll caution, just as we did the other month with the Hartman development, that this is a concept plan and that when the preliminary plat comes in, the mix and type of housing, the number of lots, and the road alignments could all change as they start doing their engineering and fine-tune what that concept will look like. The comprehensive plan amendment is needed on this site because the property is currently guided for medium-density residential in your comprehensive plan that would accommodate between 4 and 8 units per acre. And they're asking for a reduction in the density to a low-density category of 2 to 4 units per acre. This would likely come in somewhere in the middle, around 3.3 to 3.6 units per acre when it's all done. A couple challenges with this site is this concept plan is showing a connection to Green Ash Drive in the Spring Creek neighborhood. It's hard to see on the concept plan, but there's actually a strip of land that's 16 feet wide that is a cartway that serves the property to the south of this concept plan. And so there will have to be some coordination between the two property owners to try to figure out the best way to accommodate and hopefully make that connection, because that would be best for the long-range plans of the city.
Can you point out where that is, just for?
Sure, it's the road connection that goes on the southeast side of the plans to the existing road that you can see a little bit of in that aerial photo.
East side, somebody.
So it's Street C.
Or it's the southwest side, that would be west, wouldn't it?
Yeah, southwest, sorry. Did I say southeast?
Southwest, thank you. So Street C
Street
on the
C.
west side.
Yep.
That connection there. There's another, the property to the south has access at that point.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
So that's just a detail that'll have to be worked out and sorted through as this moves forward to a preliminary plat.
Okay.
Todd Cushman with Trinity Development is here to, I'll give him an opportunity to add anything else that he'd like to add to this. They are proposing to do two different sizes of lots in this version of the plan. One is a 50-foot wide lot that would be more of a detached townhome product. So it would look like a single-family home, but it would be on lots that are fairly narrow, with a very narrow setback as well. And then would be association maintained around the outside of the lawn and the snow plowing the driveways and things like that, just like you would have in a townhome development. And then other lots are 65-foot lots that are very similar to the other single-family that you've seen recently.
Okay. Can you comment on the density of Spring Creek to the west?
Yes, that is very similar to the 65-foot wide lots that you see here.
Thank you for that
So it would
perspective.
blend in fairly well.
Yeah, that was kind of my question. I know you commented on the density. I believe you said that staff has reviewed the balanced density across the city and determined that the Met Council requirements can still be met with the reduced density on this property.
Correct. So you're wondering what that meant?
Yes.
So across the entire city, we have to maintain at least three units per net acre in terms of what we can develop. And the Met Council assumes that you're going to develop at the lowest part of your range. So a site like this, when we're looking at going to a low density, we've determined whether we can meet that or not at 2 units per acre across, and then every parcel is kind of re-added up. So we did the analysis and determined that we believe that we can do this comprehensive plan amendment and still meet our required minimum of 3 units per acre.
Okay. Okay.
And that's just one of the checks and balances that Met Council looks at.
Absolutely. We're familiar with that one. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm sorry. Todd is here from the develop. Please come on up.
Hi, my name is Todd Cushman with Trinity Development, and excuse me. Trinity Development is a development company that specializes in residential developments and apartment buildings and senior and memory care facilities. So we have a number of projects throughout the Twin Cities, but we've never had the opportunity to work in the city of Carver before. So we are very excited to work with the city of Carver and work in the community. So I'm definitely happy to answer any questions that you guys have about the proposed development.
Okay. So I guess now that I understand that the sort of the northernmost part with the 50-foot lots are a different product than the other ones, and so that would all be association maintained then?
Yes.
Okay, so with the...
The term that is used out in kind of the public these days is kind of villa, is kind of the villa product is what's going to be going in there. So
Okay.
it is it also is referred to as the detached townhome, but it is a single family type unit, but it is association maintained.
Okay. And so the cul-de-sacs, I don't know what to call those sort of loop things that are in there. Are we going to have to plow those? The city?
Those are all proposed to be public streets, and that's one of the things that I think they're probably looking at as well.
Okay.
And it's really just it's a variation of a cul-de-sac, so you would treat it as sort of a one-way around. So it's sort of an island in the middle.
Okay, yeah. I assume we'd have review by Public Works.
We would.
Okay, good. Can you speak to price points within this development?
Yeah, I can have a kind of a general price point. We work with many different builders. We strictly get involved on the development process and run everything through to having finished lots, and then we work with multiple builders throughout the Twin Cities area. And the builder that we're looking at working with on this project knows this market well. They currently have other projects around the area out in Cologne and up in Victoria. And so they're really kind of thinking they're going to be pretty competitive right with the other projects that are currently in the city of Carver. Both both the villa product and the single-family home, I'm going to say, is going to maybe have that starting point of about 350. Usually, by the time they're finished with options, they're somewhere about 375 to maybe 425, 450. Seems to be the general price range of this area.
Okay. And would that also be consistent for the other lots?
That would be
Same kind.
consistent for pretty much all the lots. You might get a little higher end towards the south there a little bit. Those are going to have some nice bluff settings. Those might be a little bit higher end lots compared to the north end, and a little bit more on the east end.
Okay. Okay.
But the villa product, sometimes you think of it maybe not being as having the same cost as the single family, but a lot of times the villa product is people who have had their single family houses, they're stepping down, but they still want very nice amenities. So even though the house itself might seem a little bit smaller, they've usually added some pretty nice amenities to those products.
Okay. Okay. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here from the public who would like to make any comments or questions? Please come on up.
Hi, my name is Peggy Thompson, and I'm here with my dad, Ken Thompson. My parents own property, Thompson Bluff Lots, which is south of this development. In fact, there would be this part, this 50 acres you're looking at on the screen. There's another property below that. I think it's, I'm just going to say Gilbert, I'm guessing. Gilbert, okay, and then south of that is where my parents own 3 acres. They've owned that for over 50 years. And they've had access to that over the time through maybe is this Cindy here?
Yes.
Okay, what she maybe mentioned, they basically travel to their property on an informal, I don't know if you'd call it that, cartway or something. So they travel down this sort of property line to the west. And then a little bit across to their property. There is only that access now. So when this, or if, or whatever happens here, affects and potentially landlocks them, at least until maybe that Street B would continue. I mean, it looks like it kind of dead ends at the Gilbert property, and then maybe eventually it would end up at that Thompson property. But I guess that's a pretty significant concern here on what happens here, how is their access to their land.
Right.
And I'm certain that the city of Carver would want to have some access there, of course, because if that is developed in some way, you'd want the tax base of those. And I think Todd mentioned, too, that the southernmost lots there are probably the more premium lots. And so certainly that Thompson is like it's on the very edge of the bluff. They'd probably be, it's the 3 acres, and I think development-wise, you couldn't even develop a lot of it because it is the bluff, but it would probably be 2 or 3 larger things. Just, again, it's not like any proposal, but I'm just saying the access is a concern.
Yep, absolutely. I'm having a hard time visualizing where this is on our comprehensive plan. Anybody got a map they could?
I can
Find.
pull one up if you give me just a minute.
Super.
So just to give you some visuals, the property that's outlined in yellow on your screen is the Gilbert property. And the yellow line then that you can see going up to Spring Creek Drive is the cartway, that's 16-foot wide access.
So that's part of that property?
That's part of that property.
Okay. Would it become part of this property?
You know, that is something that is in discussion.
Okay.
long-term, it's not desirable to have, if you presume development of everything else as well,
Yeah.
to have a 16-foot wide gap here.
Yes.
So that would have to be maintained long-term, but we're not, of course, talking about the development of the Gilbert property right now.
Right, I know, but yeah, okay.
So speculating a little bit there.
Okay.
The property that Ms. Thompson is referring to is this one that's highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
It has, I don't know when it was subdivided off and how long it's been a property on its own. It fronts on Broadway Street, which is the old Snake Road. And I haven't seen any documents that describe how they're obtaining access to the property right now. So that's something that sort of very similar to things that you've seen before, say a dispute between property owners regarding where a fence line is and which property is whose. We would view that as a private property dispute and something that they'll have to sort through between themselves.
Okay. Okay. We wouldn't have put detail in our comprehensive plan about any connection roads or anything like that with,
No, there's not that, it doesn't go down to that
it doesn't
level
go
of
down to
detail.
that level, okay. I didn't think so, I just wanted to ask, okay.
And then just so you can get some appreciation for the properties in that area, the white lines that you now see on there are contour lines, and those are, at the scale that we were at, they were at 10 foot, now they're at 2 foot, so you can see where the bluff lines are. So the portion that Ms. Thompson was referring to that they could use is up in this part of the property.
Right, so, yeah, I can see how the feasibility of access from the south is a little challenging.
Can't be done.
Yeah, I see now.
Can't be done.
Okay, okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There was some talk, I don't have the years right, but a ways back, there was a proposed development here before City of Carver for developing the Gilbert property. And that somehow it stalled. But I think during that, there was also some conversation. I think it had to be adjusted to provide the access to the Thompson property down there. So, I don't know, it just seems like somewhere along the way here, there's got to be, even looking, especially at the contour lines, it seems that it's in the city's best interest too, not to just landlock that.
Right,
I don't know.
right. Okay,
So,
okay. Thank you.
okay, thanks.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
I'm Amanda Peterson, and I own 1887 Green Ash, which borders Gilbert's little strip, and then the new proposed development, just so you guys kind of get a feel for where I am.
So somewhere in here?
Somewhere in there?
I'm literally the last house on the south. There you go, right there.
Ah, okay, great. Okay.
So obviously we're gonna have a ton of questions about this as it progresses. I know you guys are in preliminary.
This is very preliminary. It's a concept.
But going along, I think so with the Gilbert issue is how that, I still am just curious how that's all gonna play in. Are you guys in contact with them about trying to merge that? Because that strip runs the whole length of the Spring Creek line at that point.
Correct. We have talked with both Trinity Development as well as the representative of the person who owns the, what we've been referring to as the Gilbert property. And back when this was looked at about 10 or 11 years ago, some of you might recall that Rutland had a purchase agreement for the property that Trinity currently does, so we were looking at that back at that time as well. That's something that we'll have to kind of flush through as we move forward to the preliminary plat. And I would anticipate that when you see a preliminary plat come in, it'll come in either designed one way because they've reached some agreement between the property owners involved, or it'll look differently if they haven't. So that's certainly one of the issues that will affect design of this neighborhood.
My other question, I guess I want clarification on is with there being now villas and traditional single-family homes, the villas will have an HOA, association is also the single-family, is, Todd can.
Yeah, I don't believe that they will have an association.
Okay.
Standard single-family homes without an association.
Okay.
They will be, they're trying to really set it up so it is kind of separated and easy to maintain an association in one area and then have more of that single family along that south side. So it's kind of separated with more villas up north and single families.
Okay.
And then can anybody speak to potential timelines for this? I know the surveys have been done and released initially.
Yeah, I'm sure you can speak to when you would anticipate a more final plat.
Can you speak into a microphone, Todd, so we can pick you up?
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we know in development, there's always a moving target in regards to timelines, and in a perfect world, we'd love to get going on this as soon as we can this year with breaking ground. We have a feeling it's gonna be probably closer to July or so before we would actually break ground. It would be done in construction phases, and so we'd be looking at pretty much focusing on the north side, starting off of Spring Creek Drive, bringing in that access up there, and focus that as kind of the first phase of construction, and then the south side is more of the second phase of construction is what has been initially discussed. And we believe from the builder, they would be focusing more on some of the villa product again up there on the north side, start moving a little bit to the west side, and then kind of coming down and working through the south side. But so I would say, this year maybe a little bit on the north side. In 2017, they would probably start a model home at the end of the year, hopefully be ready for spring parade, and then hopefully 2018 is when we'd actually really start seeing hopefully some momentum in the area.
Okay.
Stay here just in case.
Thank you.
I guess I can table the rest of my questions until you guys get final plats. I'm sure you're aware of this. The grade level currently of that property sits higher than that whole line of our houses over there. So really going to be curious how you guys are going to lay that out so that it does not create a bunch of issues for us. So I'm assuming that, are you guys very far from that? I know they were surveying all the last 2 weeks out there, so are you guys pretty close?
I know engineers is starting right now. Engineering has really been working on the concept plan, and then they're going to start getting into that a lot with the grading, with everything that's been completed. Again, they're going to have to, they're going to be moving fairly soon on it in order for us to try to get through any processes with the city and then be able to start doing something here, late summer.
Right. And we would see a final plat here, correct?
You'll see both a preliminary and a final plat.
Yep, because
And
it's
there-
just concept.
Correct, and there'll be another public hearing at the time of the preliminary plat.
Yep. And we'll see a lot more details at that stage. That would be a good one for you to pay attention to.
And then I guess more just a general comment, not specific just to Trinity, but there's just a lot of developing proposals out there right now for housing. I know, just kind of curious from the city's perspective, as far as that amount of rapid growth, because a lot of these are going to be very close together, potentially on the building of these properties. On one hand, it's great, I think, for the city, and on the other hand, it kind of makes me cringe a little bit because it is so fast, I think, for all the infrastructure pieces. Because this is 150, there's another 250 proposed, down, more off Jonathan Carver, and then also the Mattamy development still isn't built out. That's been ongoing forever, so just trying to understand the rush, I guess, on all of these kind of at the same time.
Go ahead and I'll make some more comments. Go ahead, Bill.
Sure. So, from a utility perspective, the city is fine with accepting this as well as the other developments that are currently being proposed. We have sufficient, more than sufficient space for sanitary sewer since we connected to the Met Council line several years ago. The water tower is also sufficient for the proposed uses. Public Services has been doing a fantastic job at looking at different options for water treatment that involve incremental addition to the water treatment system that don't require the city to have an extremely large capital outlay at one point, at any given point, I should say, for a water treatment plant. So we feel like we're positioned very well, and a lot of this is growth that was ready to happen right before the housing crash. So we, at that point, some of you might recall, were looking at, we were building out the Spring Creek neighborhood, the Glen at Spring Creek neighborhood, the Lowell Glen neighborhood, and a lot of Carver Bluffs still was going on at that same time. So the pace of development is actually more what the city is used to than what we've experienced the last 7 years.
I would agree with that because I was on the Planning Commission prior to that, and this is much more similar to the pace of development that we were seeing prior to the housing crash. And I will say that, keep in mind, the city's not the one selling these properties. These are individual private property owners. There are developers out there who are obviously seeing the economic benefits of these opportunities and purchasing these properties. The city is really responding to it. The role of this commission and the city council is to make sure that we have a comprehensive plan, and which includes all of the utilities and everything that goes with it, that we plan out our space so that when people sell their properties and developers come in, we're ready for it. We understand what we want from our city to grow. We don't have a lot of say in the timing. It's a lot of other factors outside of our control. But we try to make sure that we're following the guidance. And I know this was in the comprehensive plan, this piece was medium density. And I know when we did the comprehensive plan the last time, we were looking at a lot more newer, medium or higher density residential areas within the city, and even outside of the city, anticipating annexing portions of Dahlgren Township. But my personal perspective in seeing this development, now that we have Spring Creek there, right? We didn't have Spring Creek there the last time we did the comprehensive plan, and seeing what's around it, I think this fits better necessarily than the medium density and the higher density that was originally put into the comprehensive plan. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Have anything?
Nope.
Mr. Dahlgren? Sorry. Thank you. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. All right.
I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the concept plan for Trinity Development, subject to the conditions of the staff report.
I'll second that.
Before you second that, I just want to make sure we add in there that when we see the preliminary plat, I would like to make sure that there is some kind of addressing of the access to the southern properties within that we see some kind of proposal within that.
Again,
Can we do that?
I'm not sure, because again, that's really a private property owner issue between,
Sure.
just like the fence issue.
Sure.
That
Can I make a recommendation that the developer consider it?
this developer doesn't border that property that has the concern.
Not the Thompsons, but the Gilbert property. But that's the one with the 16-foot wide, that property. I mean that property.
Sure, but they're not coming in. So it's hard to put that as a condition on the Trinity proposal.
Because that's the Gilbert property, that little strip.
Yeah, I know, it's the Gilbert property.
But that's
That's not them. I know, I understand that. They're sharing that with, the Gilbert property. I get that. But I'm not sure from a city perspective, we want a 16-foot wide strip of land between these two developments. That's my point.
Oh, that's, yes.
That's more of my
Sorry,
point.
I'm understanding now.
Let's put it that way. That there's an addressment of, or somehow that 16-foot wide piece of property is addressed with the preliminary plan, such that there's some other kind of access. Then you can second it. Sorry. Yeah.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And then I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the comprehensive plan, guidance from medium-density residential to low-density residential, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving on. Okay, so hold on. What did I miss? Okay, so we're on the amendment to the city zoning ordinance in relation to the office of the city manager. So this also has a public hearing, which I'll open right now. But we also have, Cindy, if you want to introduce this one as well.
Yes, this is a relatively simple ordinance amendment. As you'll recall, in the last election, the city's residents opted to become a Plan B city, and Brent Merrick is now a city manager instead of a city administrator. And as such, we did have to go through the city's code of ordinances and eliminate the references of city administrator and change that to city manager. And then in some locations, we assigned it to a different person if that made more sense.
Yep.
But that's the extent of what the changes are here.
I believe we've seen a draft of this before, I think when it was being considered in the first place.
It came out in your January packet because that's when we originally intended to bring this to you.
That's why I read it before. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody from the public who would like to make any comments or questions about this particular zoning ordinance amendment? Anybody have any questions up here?
No questions.
All righty then, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the amendment to the city zoning ordinance in relation of the office of the city manager.
I will second that.
All in favor? Aye. All righty. New business. We've got the 6th Street West redevelopment proposals.
We do. You'll have one specific proposal presented to you this evening. The city did, just to go back in time a little bit for the benefit of anyone who's listening, the city did issue a request for proposals for what we've affectionately called the bus garage property at 926 Street West. And initially, when we sent out the RFP, we didn't receive any proposals back. The city council reissued that, and this time we did receive 2 proposals. So before you, for your consideration and recommendation to the city council, is 2 proposals. You'll hear one of the presentations this evening. You'll hear the other one at your March meeting. The 2 proposals are very different in terms of what these developers' visions for the site are. The one you'll hear this evening is a proposal it's basically the same proposal as the concept plan that you had reviewed about 1.5 years ago for 12 twin home units to be on the site. The other proposal would be a senior building, I'll call it that for right now. As you read their proposal, you'll see that they don't have a specific number of units or type of units yet because they would be doing it subject to a market study that they would need to do to see what would be feasible in this location. But generally speaking, they're looking at a 2-story building between 40 and 60 units in the other proposal. And it could be any of a number of different types of units geared towards seniors, from independent living to memory care. This evening, I'd like to introduce Dave Pokorny again to give the presentation for CCR Homes. And I'll let him discuss what they would like to do with you.
Okay.
Are you running the, oh, I get to run.
I'm gonna give this to you so you can advance it with.
Okay, so I'm Dave Picorni, and I represent Community Asset Development Group. And as you recall, we were working with Dick Lenza, who owned the property. I don't want to go through the whole litany of what was happening with that piece, but once it was determined that the appropriate use was a redevelopment, as you're aware, the property got sold to the city. This is the site. It's kind of a unique site in that it's a vacant industrial building in the middle of a very intense residential neighborhood. And back at the time that we were working with the Lenzins and the city, this was the concept that really became kind of the preferred concept with the staff. It also became clear in order to accomplish this, it was going to require the city and the developer becoming partners. It was going to be a tax increment district. It would require demolition, cleanup, building infrastructure, and I believe, and I think the city staff can talk better than I can, but I think one of the conclusions they reached is that it would be better that they would gain control of the site completely, particularly related to some of the environmental potential issues, and have the city kind of take the lead on the development. The proposal that we're making, again, is to have it be the 12 twin homes. These would be located off of the cul-de-sac. It would be in a homeowners association off of a private road. Again, these are some kind of images of how it would fit on the site. One of the advantages, maybe I'll go back one, of this particular is it addresses the challenge of taking and redeveloping in the middle of an existing neighborhood. When it was an industrial use, part of the way to mitigate that use was this berm got built around the site, and trees were planted, and I assume when they went in they were relatively small trees. They are relatively large trees today. And so that was one of the criteria that I think we all set, was that we wanted to preserve that berm. And so again, this plan tries to do that. Although it's a larger site, you'll see particularly on the east side, there's a fair amount of open space behind the townhomes. But when you start trying to lay out development, given the access point being where it needs to be, that really becomes kind of unusable land once it goes to either a single family or a twin home type development. This shows the pond adjacent to the cul-de-sac. There's actually another option of putting the pond on the east side of the property. Once this property was acquired by the city, and then they came out with RFPs, actually we didn't respond the first time because we were having difficulty finding a builder that we could get interested in the project. Since that time, we do have a builder that has said they would acquire the property, and so the concept that we're saying is we would let the city put the public improvements in, deal with the demolition, deal with the cleanup. Quite frankly, it's the demo and cleanup that is, under at least Minnesota law, not only easier if it's a public entity, it's more fiscally affordable if a public entity does it. And then you would create, in this case, a tax increment district, which would subsidize some of those. One of the real risks, though, of doing public projects where the public entity goes in and acquires the property, does the improvements, does the cleanup, they need to be assured that when they're done, there's a buyer. So the way that we proposed the structure is we would buy the lots for $276,000. Before the city, once we entered into a redevelopment agreement, and this is before there would be any demo, we would make a $50,000 deposit, and that agreement would say that if, once the city was done with the improvements, we would pay them an additional $226,000, and that would, then we would own title to the land. Because it's in a tax increment district, one of the challenges typically with single-family or townhouse developments in tax increment districts is they take a long time to build out. So if it's an industrial building and you're trying to create new taxes, well, it comes on just kind of like that, because once the building is built, you know taxes are going to get paid. So what we've said here is that we're going to commit that we would have all the units built within 48 months. That's our commitment. Given the discussions we've been having with the builder, we think we could actually get built sooner than that. And we would commit that any lot that wasn't built on by 2022, that we would pay taxes as if there was a building on it. And again, it all relates back to the tax increment structure. I'm not going to go through the details of the financial side. I think that will really be the city staff. And if I told you this was the right, you wouldn't believe me anyway. So you can go and have your staff confirm that the estimates that we've done are accurate. But at least based on our estimates, this will result in the city more than covering its cost of the development, including the acquisition of the land that they paid too much for. We sold it to them, so that's why. But I do think it's important to look kind of at the development itself. This is another image of the townhouses. They do fit really very nice onto the site. One of the negatives is that it's a very flat site. But for attached townhomes, that's actually a positive, because these end up being the single level empty nester type of unit, and they need a flat site. From the type of product, we anticipate this would be in the market range of $225 to $275, which not that there are always going to be people that are the empty nester, but that tends to be the people who buy these. And they're the people that are maybe a little more price conscious than buying the next level up, the villa type unit. So for example, we've been involved with DDK construction on the River Bluffs villas, and those are in the 300 to 350 range. And so the idea is to be a little bit different than that market. Again, kind of an image of the units. These are 2 bedrooms, 2 stall garages. I don't know what else. The unit itself is really pretty straightforward. It's another image of the landscaping. Our hope is that the city would be able to complete the improvements potentially yet this year. And as part of our proposal, we committed that we would immediately build one of the units. We think that this is a product that has been developed in this general market area and is sold very well. And so we think it will go very fast. One of the unique aspects of these that really makes it desirable is to be able to develop it on a public street. And a lot of developers will come in and they want to go with the private streets. For this kind of product, it's really important that we have a public street because it significantly allows us to have significantly less association fees. Because in a typical townhouse development, you might see monthly association fees in the $275 to $325 a month. Probably $250 of that relates to funding the future replacement of the infrastructure. So, for example, we just completed a similar project to this, and the association fees are $90 a month. And that is very attractive in that marketplace. So we're excited about it. If it's something that works for the city, we're prepared to proceed. Is that my last slide? I think so. Must be.
Dave, just to confirm, at the beginning, it sounded like you had said that was going to be a private road. Did you say
It'll be
it's
a public street.
public is what's proposed?
Yep.
Okay,
And
just to clarify.
So oftentimes developers, when they don't put in public streets, it's because they're trying to minimize the amount of right-of-way and the radius of these cul-de-sacs. So this is designed to be a full city, meet all the city standards of radius and right-of-way. That actually looks really big when at that angle, but that's a normal cul-de-sac. Just kind of how the computer drew it at an angle.
Okay. I mean, I know when we set out to write the proposal for this property, what we wanted in this piece. One, I'm really excited that we actually have developers with proposed plans because it's really nice to see this space get redeveloped into something beneficial for the community because I know it was vacant for a while and had a lot of issues. And so it's really nice to see it have the opportunity to get redeveloped. We wanted to see something that was going to fit well within that neighborhood because a lot of the neighbors of the facility had a lot of challenges with that industrial site. And so I am really looking forward to hearing neighbor input on this proposal as well as the next one because they are so different, right? I mean, this does address one of the things we were looking for was a different type of housing that we don't have in Carver today. We want to have life cycle housing. We don't want to just have single family homes for people who are in their lives where they want a single family home. We want to be able to support all different ages and residential needs, and so having something that's a single level that's more geared towards senior housing is a great addition to the community. So this definitely does address that need, and I think it would fit well with the surrounding neighborhood. I'll be curious to see what the neighbors think. I really look forward to that, especially on the other one too, because it is such a different proposal.
Yeah, I agree with Joy. I like how this looks, and I think it'll fit well, too.
Well, I can tell you what, we looked at different designs with the city and staff, and how do I put this? I'll tell you what, we weren't prepared to proceed with some of the other plans because some of the plans required us impacting that berm. And we said, once we impact the berm, it's not going to be a pleasant meeting. And we said, we just don't need to go through unpleasant meetings. So to us, and I think the other proposal is going to respect that also, but that is once that changes,
Yeah,
that really is an impact in the neighborhood.
I agree.
Would you have put that there if it was always single family or
Probably not.
residential? No.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, it actually works nice for this product because by the time people are moving into this product, they want a backyard, but they don't really need a backyard to go and have the kids play in, right?
Yeah.
And the berm then becomes that edge so that they can have this really nice, small, private backyard. And in some cases, it's a larger one, but there are some of the units that get relatively close to the berm. But again, for our market, that's fine.
Right.
It might not be fine again if you had 4 little kids. So yeah, optimistic that we'll have a positive response from the neighbors on this one, if it's the one that's selected.
Okay.
Dave, one of your references on here is the city of Waconia, the city manager. Do you guys have a development? Have you either a previous development or one you're currently working on in Waconia? Is that why?
So, no, I was actually the city manager in Chaska,
Okay.
and I've retired, but we did a project in Waconia.
Okay.
That's probably what it references. We worked with Auburn Homes, and if you know, there's right by the hospital, Auburn developed I forget now, 62-unit senior assisted living,
Yep.
and we were the developer on that.
Okay.
I'm going to assume the city is going to do its own sort of analysis on the TIF and all the financing and all the numbers and that sort of thing.
Correct, we will be doing that, and
Okay.
because the proposals are so different,
Yeah.
we'll be doing what we can to make them more of as much of an apples to apples comparison as we can.
Right.
Recognizing we'll probably never get quite all the way there.
Okay. All right. I didn't have any other questions or comments at this stage in the game. Okay. Anything else from anybody else?
Nothing.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, we don't need to make any motions or anything on that one, do we?
No, what we'd be looking at is after your next meeting, when you hear the other proposal, then we would be looking for some
Some
sort of a
feedback, yeah.
recommendation from you that we can take to the city council.
Okay, sounds good. We can do that. Okay. All right, moving on. Any comments on the December and January department reports? I'm scrolling to see if anything was, everybody looks busy. Lots going on. I thought the detailed police report was really interesting. And the fire department report about how the majority, I mean, I've heard this lots of times, but the majority of their calls are medical related, not fire related, right? Or some sort of emergency like that. I don't have any comments or questions. Anybody
Nothing.
else?
No?
All right. So I'm assuming we'll be having a March meeting?
We are definitely having a March meeting.
Okay. Right.
Does it propose to start earlier, or that?
Correct, so at your March meeting, we'll be taking a different format. We'll start at 5:30 with a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the City Council to start work on the comprehensive plan.
We are?
We are, and then your regular meeting moves to 7 o'clock. So that way we were able to accommodate the comprehensive plan meetings for you guys on the same night without having you have to come out 2 different nights.
Shoot. 5:30?
5:30.
And this is going to go for the next couple months?
It will
right?
go for most of this year.
Okay. Okay.
We can email out the work plan to you guys so that you can see sort of the schedule of what we think we're going to be following here.
Okay. All right. Yep, I should design my setup for swimming lessons. 5 o'clock on Thursdays. It's a bad idea. Okay. All right. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.